So you found a good bass sample that you want to use. Make sure you do one thing in particular for bass samples, and this is just an opinion, but leave them on gate and then make sure that you sample enough of it. I would say get at least a solid bar if you're gonna sample a bass note. Make sure you sample in C, and don't normalize it, because sometimes like when you normalize it, it can distort it or make it worse. Just use the whole copy feature. Copy yourself at least 2 of them. Hit shift resample and then stack them. That way you pretty much have control over the volumes. You're not gonna, you can even decrease it however much you want if you need to. So those are some tips for creating a bass note. Make sure you sample in C. Leave the gate on for playing purposes. And then I'm going to show you one, to me, that's the final tip when you're recording. I used to just leave it on wait, but when you're doing a pattern and recording it, you kind of need to make sure you put it on like 2 measures. And here's the reason why. I'm going to do this here just so you can see it. Oops. Copy this over here. Pattern. I'm going to go ahead and delete what I have in here for the bass so you can see it. All right, so let's say you have these 8 bars, that's fine. And you want to record that bass to here. So you're going to hit record. Now, I don't do 50% all the time. I did it this time. It can help if your timing is jacked, but I like to play my stuff in real time for the most part. So hit record, and to see if you give yourself enough time, you have enough time to go back here. So having enough time, because at least in the SP for sure, because you have to be able to get back. So pattern edit. Again, you have to have enough time to get back. So if you hit record, press it. If you have 2 bars, you got that long to press the sample back, hit shift. Hit shift here, and then. Okay, so we're gonna stop it there. I'm gonna delete that. Next thing I was gonna show you, and these are just tips to work on the bass portion of it. Once you've gotten your 1-shot sample, it's in the key of C, or it's in C, right? Just play the C note, record it in for at least a bar, and then put your gate on. Because the reason why you want gate is so that when you start playing in a chromatic mode, it doesn't bleed into each other, right? It's gonna release when you take your finger off of it. Just like it would release if you take your finger off of a bass note, right, on the guitars. It's going to be some sustain there typically on a guitar, but for the most part, you'll have more control if you're on gate. All right, now let's go to the next and final thing I was going to say is the chromatic mode. Make sure you learn how to use it. So it's shift 4. And you can see here, what I like to do if I'm going to use this is set the scale. And the only reason is because I don't obviously want to play too much out of scale for the most part, and you only have 16 pads available to you. Now, if you use a MIDI controller, I think Roland gives you 2 octaves, so that can be nice, especially for playing maybe you want to go in and record like here's C, but that's C, so you want to play an octave. So maybe you want to go back and record some little octave notes that you hit up. That's kind of the nice thing with having at least a MIDI controller with two octaves. Okay, carrying on. So setting it into this mode. So when it first comes on, it's going to be in chromatic mode, which is this. And to me, this is okay. On a keyboard, chromatic mode, not a big deal. I see everything and I can just play what I want. But when you're playing on here, and I'm not a huge pad player type person, I prefer to have the keys, but if I'm going to play on here, I'm going to set it to the scale of the song. In this case, the scale happens to be in major, So to change the scale, you're just going to press the encoder in, right, until you get to the scale you want. Then you're going to hit roll and turn the dial until you can see here you set the scale key. So in this case, it's in E flat, and there you have it. Then after you set that, you can just turn the dial again and maybe take it an octave. Or in the case of this, I'm doing a bass, so I'm going down as far as I can, right? Now, if you sample middle C on the note, you actually do better for yourself that way. The reason is because this is what, an octave below middle C. So there's your original note. But if you feel like you need to go more octaves down, because this thing only gives you 2 octaves, then I would say you just go down to maybe like a C2, right? Then you have a little more range on the bass, but it can get pretty muddy when you do that sometimes, which is typically why I don't use a one-shot bass sample. I would just play my bass into here just because I don't want to deal with the limitations of that. But if you don't mind and all you have is a box and the box itself, and you just want to work within this, get your one-shots to middle C, or even C2 if you want. I'm gonna call middle C C3 because typically that's where I would put it, pinpoint it on a scale. But if you want to go C2, that's fine too, and then you have a extra octave down or even up if you want to. So but that's why you want to take and make sure you have at least a bar of a bass note, so you can hold it long enough. I'm never gonna hold a note that long. That's crazy, but right. So you have enough time when you release. If you take it off gate, they're not cutting each other off, and it's just gonna keep playing. So leave it on gate, and there you go. And then this is what mine sounds like now that I've okay. So this is just an example of how to use the bass, one shots on the bass portion of it. I'm not going to do a lot of examples like this because you can mess around and do whatever you want. Really, there's a lot of freedom, but it's just for those that want to play that type of bass sound in it, I would suggest doing that. There are some people that will choose to record all their bass notes here, and they would rather just have the single individual notes. I don't mind doing that. And occasionally I will, but most of the time I'm just going to record the bass all the way through. If I use a one shot, I would rather just use the C and play it off the chromatic. And that's just because when you bounce out your, let's say you send your multi-pads out, it's going to send out all of those pads that you have, right? It takes a lot longer to do that. So if you choose to do that method where you put let's say a C here, a G here, or whatever, and you have, let's say you have 8 of them, my suggestion to you is after you record the pattern, bounce the pattern, just the bass portion, out to one pad so that you just have it on one pad and you don't have to go back and worry when you send out all your stuff, because it takes so much longer when you have a ton of pads. So just a thought. Again, do what's best for you. This is a sample I got off of Output co-producer, so I just used the chord sample. I didn't even chop it up just because I didn't feel like it. And I didn't like the way it sounded when I chopped it anyway. I did try it, but whatever. And then some real drums that I have going on here. So that is it for this video. Just want to talk about the bass a little bit. And until the next one, we're out.